Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Naamira Wajah binti Kamaluddin. So today my group will be presenting about the diversity of Ecdysozoan and the Invertebrate Deuterostomes. Okay, so you can open Meta textbook page 530. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the learning outcome for this diversity of Ecdysozoan is to identify the characteristic unit of Ecdysozoan, to compare the anatomical features of roundworm and arthropod, to describe 5 characteristics responsible for the success of the arthropod. Okay, so what is Ecdysozoan? Ecdysozoan is a protostome characterized by the periodic molting of its exoskeleton that also include roundworm and arthropod. Okay, so what is the difference between spiralian protostome and Ecdysozoan protostome? Okay, so Ecdysozoan do not undergo a spiral cleavage. Ecdysozoan have an outer covering that we call it as a cuticle, which will protect and support the animal and periodically shed to allow growth. So bila sampai masa dia untuk membesar, the cuticle tu dia akan peel off, so the animal can grow into a larger size. Okay, so this is the examples of the roundworm, and this is the example of the arthropod. Okay. So, unlike the animal that reproduce by the releasing a large amount of eggs and sperm to their environment, Ecdysozoan evolve in 2 separate sets, which the first one is they will come together and copulate to deliver sperm into the female body. So, the first one dia akan kumpul, lepas tu dia akan bersusun untuk dihantar sperm tu kepada female body. The second one is they will directly fertilize egg as they are released. Okay, so that is a little bit a background about the Ecdysozoan. So we will go to the next slide. That is a roundworm. Okay, so roundworm or a phylum nematode are non-segmented worm that have been characterized as the most numerous multicellular organism because we can find it abundant in the soil. So the range size of a roundworm is from microscopic size to 1 meter in length. The internal organ of this roundworm, including the tubular reproductive organ that will lie within the pseudocoelom. Okay, so a pseudocoelom is a fluid-filled body cavity that is incompletely lined by mesoderm that occurs inside the body wall, but not around the digestive gut. Okay, so from the photo, okay, this is the part of the digestive gut, and the blue one is the pseudocoelom. Okay, so this is the cuticle. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. That is the diversity of the roundworm. Okay, so the roundworm consists of Ascaris, Trichinella, filarial worm, and a pinworm. Okay, so Ascaris can cause ascariasis, Trichinella spiralisis can cause trichinosis, filarial worm can cause a heartworm disease and elephantiasis. Okay, so this is the example of elephantiasis, and pinworm can cause a pinworm infection. Okay, so this is the roundworm. Okay, so I'm going to explain more details about this roundworm. The first one is the Ascaris. It is estimated that up to 1 billion people are infected with the nematode of the genus Ascaris. Okay, so Ascaris is common in tropical countries, especially area with a poor sanitation. So Ascaris male is much more smaller than the female one. Okay, so a typical female Ascaris produce over 200,000 eggs daily. So the egg eliminated with the host feces and can remain viable in the soil for many months. So how the egg enter a human body? So egg enter a human body through uncooked vegetable, soil, finger, or ingested fecal material. So they after they enter the human body, they will hatch in the intestines, and the juvenile make their way into the vein and lymphatic vessels. So they will be carried to the lung and heart. So the larvae travel up to the trachea and they are swallowed and reach the intestines. So the larvae mature and begin feeding. Okay. So if the larva reach the lung, they will cough and bloody sputum. So if the larva reach intestine, it will cause malnutrition, blockage of the bile and pancreatic duct. Okay, so mula-mula bila cacing tu masuk dalam badan kita, so dia akan menetas kat dalam usus kita. So dia akan cari jalan masuk ke sistem limfa ataupun saluran darah kita untuk dia pergi kepada hati ataupun paru-paru tu. So daripada situ dia akan pergi kepada trachea kita. So bila dia sampai kat trachea, dia akan ditelan dan masuk balik dalam usus kita. So bila dia masuk dalam usus kita, dekat sinilah dia ambil semua nutrisi dalam badan kita. Sebab larva tu dia hidup dengan makan macam mucus kita, ambil nutrisi dalam badan kita. Okay. So we go to the next one. The second one is trichinella. Okay, trichinella can cause a serious infection that to human that we call it as a trichinosis. Okay, so it happened when a human eat a rare pot that contain encysted trichinella larva. Okay, so after maturation, the female adult burrow into the wall of the small intestine and produce living offspring, which are carried by the bloodstream to the skeletal muscle where they are incised. Okay, so we can see from here that it will cause a heavy infection that will cause a painful or little. So if you get infected by this nematode, I guess you will be dead. Okay, so the third one is filarial worm. Okay, filarial worm cause various disease such as heartworm and elephantiasis. Okay, so we go to the first one, that is a heartworm disease. Okay, so why we call it as a heartworm disease? Okay, we call it as a heartworm disease because the worms live in the heart and arteries that serve the lung. Okay, so from these photos, you can heartworm disease usually it will infect a dog or a cat. So from this photo, you can see that the mosquito is the intermediate host and also act as the vector that will transmit the larva to the dogs or a cat. So there is no treatment to this, so you can only take a preventative step, that is by give your animal a heartworm medicines. Okay, so from this photo, this is the examples of a heartworm disease. Okay, ni cacing, ni hati. Okay, so we go to elephantiasis. Okay, so this parasite also use a mosquito as a vector to transmit the disease to a human. Okay, so because the adult filarial worm reside in the lymphatic vessel, the removal of a lymph fluid is impeded, and the limb of the infected person may swell to the monstrous size, resulting in the elephantiasis. Okay, so let's watch this video.
Area of expertise. Please take services, civil, dia services ni kami civil, mechanical, electrical, intelligence, training, 20 inspirations from our teacher. Electrical and professionals and consultants.
Okay, so that is a little bit about the life cycle of the filariasis. Okay, so this is the examples. So this is the example of the elephantiasis. Okay, so the last one is a pinworm. Okay, a pinworm is the most common nematode parasite in the US. So pinworm usually affected a kid. Okay, so the adult parasite live in the cecum and large intestine. Okay, so female migrate to the anal region at night and lay their egg. Scratching the resultant itch can contaminate hand, clothes, and bedding. So this is the symptom if you get infected by the pinworm infection. So I guess you have to check if you have this symptom. Maybe it's a sign. Okay, so I think that is all for me. So Aiman will continue to explain about the arthropod. Thank you.
So, arthropods belongs to the phylum Arthropoda, which includes animals such as the insects, the crustaceans, millipedes, centipedes, spiders, and scorpions. Arthropods are considered the most successful group of all animals due to 5 reasons, which is 1. An exoskeleton, 2. Segmentation, 3. A well-developed nervous system, 4. A variety of respiratory system, and 5. Metamorphosis. Next, the exoskeleton. Arthropods have a rigid, jointed exoskeleton that is made out of chitin, which is a strong and flexible polysaccharide. And the 4 main functions of the exoskeletons are 1. Protection, 2. Attachment for muscles, 3. Locomotion, and 4. Preventing desiccation. So, locomotion basically means mobility and motility for the animal to move from one place to another, for movement basically. And number 4, preventing desiccation basically means preventing the escape of moisture from the inner body of the animal. So, we have learned that exoskeletons are pretty hard and non-expandable. Then, how do animals grow up if they don't have the room to improve more mass? So, they have to molt or shed the exoskeleton as they grow larger. Before molting, the body of the animal secretes a new larger exoskeleton which is soft and wrinkly. Enzymes are also released to partially dissolve the weakened old exoskeleton so that the animal can break through and wiggle out from the old one. Next, we have segmentation. The body of the arthropods are divided into segments, and each segment has a pair of jointed appendages. Segments are fused into a head, a thorax, and an abdomen. There are 4 main functions for the appendages. Number 1, food gathering. Number 2, reproduction. Number 3, locomotion. In addition, many appendages are associated with sensory structures and used for tactile purposes. So, the next feature that we are going to dive into is the nervous system. So, arthropods have a brain and a ventral nerve cord, and the head of an arthropod bears many sensory organs, including the eyes, which consists of 2 types, which is compound and simple. So the compound eye, as you can see on the left side, it consists of many lenses. An eye of a fly, for example. So the compound eye is composed of many visual units, each of which operates independently. On the right side, the simple eye of a pretty cute spider, like that of a vertebrate, has a single lens that brings the image to focus onto many receptors, each of which receives only a portion of the image. In addition, many arthropods have well-developed touch, smell, taste, balance, and hearing. They also display many complex behaviors and methods of communication. Next, the variety of respiratory organs. So, for marine forms of arthropods, they use gills, which are vascularized, highly convoluted, thin-walled tissue specialized for gas exchange. And on the right side, which is a spider, a terrestrial form, they have hook lungs, or trachea, which means windpipe. Trachea serve as a rapid way to transport oxygen directly to the cells, and I believe we all have learned this before. So the fifth and final reason on why the arthropods are the most successful group of animals is metamorphosis. What is metamorphosis? Metamorphosis is a process of drastic change in form and physiology that occur as an immature stage, or in other words, growing up. For example, larval crabs or baby crabs live among and feast on plankton, while the adults are bottom dwellers that catch live prey or scavenge organic matter. What is this for? The result is reduced competition for resources, increasing the animal's overall fitness and also increasing its survival rate. So, there are two differences and two similarities between arthropods and roundworms. The first difference is arthropods have segmentation, like we learned before, and roundworms are non-segmented worms that are prevalent in almost any environment. Number 2, arthropods have jointed legs, meanwhile roundworms does not have any legs. And the similarities between the two are both arthropods and roundworms have an external covering or a cuticle. Number 4, both arthropods and roundworms have a common ancestor, which is Ecdysozoans.
Assalamualaikum and very good morning. I bid to my respected lecturer and all my fellow colleagues. My name is Muhammad Milat. So today I will be talking about crustacean, millipedes and centipede. So let's get started.
Crustacean has hard crusty exoskeleton which contain calcium carbonate and typical chitin. They has a pair of compound eyes and 5 pair of appendages on the head. First 2 pair of antennae and antennals lies in front of mouth and have sensory function. Alright then, first and second maxilla and also mandibles lie behind the mouth and used in feeding. Appendages on the thorax and abdomen are segmentally arranged. There are 3 types of crustacean, which are decapods, copepods, and barnacles. Copepods is the most familiar and numerous crustacean. Decapods animals have a thorax that bears 5 pairs of walking appendages. The first pairs of walking legs may be modified as claws. Let's move on to copepods. The krills are small and they live in the water, swimming freely. They are also feed on algae. Marine biologists believe that copepods serve as food for the marine animals. As their size is small, copepods are harvestable as source of marine food. Next, barnacles. Barnacles is sessile crustacean type. They have thick, heavy, and protective shell. They are usually live on wharf piling, ship hulls, seaside rocks, and even the body of whales. They begin life as a larvae, but they undergo a metamorphosis that change their swimming appendages to sailing. Next, typical anatomy of a crustacean. Usually, the head and thorax are fused into a cephalothorax. Cephal and thorax are Greek word which means head and breastplate, respectively. Carapace covered on the top and side part. Abdominal segments are equipped with sphenoids, which are small and paddle-like structure. Respiratory system of a crayfish consists of gills that lies out on the walking legs that protect by the hard covering known as carapace. On the anterior part, it is called gastric meal, which are chitinous teeth to grind food. While on the posterior part, it is act as filter to prevent coarse particles from entering digestive gland, which are where the absorption takes place. Circulatory system of the crayfish start when the heart pumps the hemolymph that contain blue respiratory pigment of hemocyanin. The hemocyanin then flows to hemocoel that consists of open space of sinus. Later, the hemolymph flow to the organs. In the mollusk, this is an open circulatory because crayfish blood is not contained within blood vessel.
In the nervous system, we must take note of two things, which are nervous system and sensory organs. For nervous system, crustaceans have brain and a ventral nerve cord that passes posteriorly. Along the length of the nerve cord, periodic ganglia give off lateral nerve. Next, for the sensory organs, it also has compound eyes and the end of the movable eye stalk. Other sensory organs includes tactile antenna and chemosensitive cilium. Crayfish also need statocysts that serve them as equilibrium organs. Production system of the crayfish. Sexes are separated in the crayfish. In male, a coiled sperm duct open to the outside at the base of the fifth walking leg. Sperm transfer is accomplished by the modification of first two swimmerets at the abdomen. In female, the ovaries open at base of the third walking legs. Following fertilization, the eggs are attached to the swimmerets of the female. Let's go to centipedes and millipedes, which we know many legs of insect. First is centipedes. Body segment has a pair of working legs. 3,000 species prefer to live in moist environments. They are active predators. Their head includes pair of antennae and jaw-like mandibles. Appendages on the first trunk segment are claw-like and venomous jaws. Moving to the second one, millipedes. Each of them 4 thoracic segment bears one pair of legs. Abdominal segments have 2 pairs of legs. They live under stones and burrow in the soil as they feed on leaf litter. They have cylindrical bodies. Some secrete hydrogen cyanide, a poisonous substance.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So, I am Shamsun Nazina. Today, I will proceed with the largest group in the phylum of Arthropoda, which is insects. So, you guys can open Meta textbooks at page 535. So, firstly, insects are adapted for an active life on land, and some have a secondarily invaded aquatic habitats. Their body are divided into a head, a thorax, and also an abdomen. There are wings at their thorax, possibly 1 or 2 pairs, for it to survive by providing a way of escaping enemies, finding food, facilitating mating, and also dispersing offsprings. Insects also show remarkable behavior adaptation. For example, a colonial insects that have the complex societies such as bees, ants, wasps, termites. Insects are also an important food source for a variety of other animals and carnivorous plants. For example, Venus flytrap. There are many insects that undergo complete metamorphosis involving drastic changes in form. For example, butterfly. We can refer this life cycle of butterfly. Firstly, their animal is a worm-like larva or the caterpillar with a chewing mouthparts. And then it will form a case or a cocoon and become a pupa. So, at this state, the body parts are completely reorganized and the adult are emerged from the cocoon to be a butterfly. But in this section, we are not going to talk about the butterfly, but we are going to talk about the typical insects of grasshopper. So, these are a figure of female grasshopper, or we call it as a Romalia. So, the part of body of grasshopper or the other insects, they are divided into head, they are divided into head, thorax, and also abdomen. So at the head first, they are complete with mouth parts. If a grasshopper have a labial palms, antenna, compound eyes, and also simple eyes. And next, thorax. Thorax, there have 3 pairs of the legs, and for grasshopper, the third pair of the legs is suited to jumping. And at the thorax is also have 2 pairs of wings. So the first pair of wings is the forewings. The forewings is tough and also leathery. So when it falls back at the rest, it is actually to protect the hind wings, which is broad and chinier than forewings. So lastly is abdomen part. So abdomen part was contained by internal organs. Okay, firstly, there are also have tympanum at the first abdominal segments. At here, so tympanum is at here. It is to receive sound wave. And there's also have ovipositor. Ovipositor is only at the female exoskeletons. So this ovipositor is used to dig a hole in which eggs are laid. So the female grasshopper will dig a hole for it to lay their eggs. Next is systems inside the grasshopper. First is digestive systems that's suitable for an herbivorous diet. So this is figures of the system inside the grasshopper. So first, for the digestive system, in the mouth, the food is break down mechanically by the mouth part and enzymatically by the saliva secretion. From the mouth, the food will go to the crop and temporarily store in it before pass into the gizzard, which is finely ground. So actually in the stomach, the digestion is already completed and the nutrients are absorbed into the hemosyl. So hemosyl is actually the space inside the insects filled by the hemolymphs. So the nutrient will absorb into the hemosyl from the vesica. Next, the cecum will open at one end only. So next is excretory systems. So excretory systems is consist by Malpighian tubules. So this is Malpighian tubules. So Malpighian tubules which extend into a hemosyl and collect the nitrogenous waste, which are a solid nitrogenous waste like uric acid will conserve water. Okay, so will conserve water. Next is the next is circulatory system. So for the circulatory system, it contains a slender tubular heart that lies against the dorsal wall at the exoskeleton, and it will pump hemolymphs into the hemosyl, circulates before returning into the heart again. So it means that it will pump the hemolymphs into the hemosyl, then it will circulate, and then it returns to the heart again. So the hemolymph is actually lack of the respiratory pigments such as the hemoglobins. Because of that, it was colorless. Other than that, hemolymphs also the transport mainly nutrients and the waste, and the highly efficient tracheal system transport respiratory gases. So next is the respiratory systems. So first, the opening in the exoskeleton spiracle. So they will open their spiracles, and then air will enter the small tubules of trachea. So the air will enter the small spiracles and then go to the trachea. So the trachea will branch and rebranch, and then it will ending at the moist area. Moist area will be the actual exchange of the gases there, and there are no individual cell is very far for the site of the gas exchange. So the air will pump by a series of bladder-like structure of air sacs. So there are no passive process that happen. So it will attach to the trachea near the spiracles. This SX is attached to the trachea near the spiracles. And so the air will enter the entrance of the spiracles and exit by the posterior 6 spiracles. And also, the breathing by the trachea for the small size of insects only, it is because the trachea are so tiny and fragile. And it will be crushed by any amount of weight. So, next is the incomplete metamorphosis. So, the grasshopper was undergo the incomplete metamorphosis. So it is because a gradual change in form as the animal mature. And also the name of the immature grasshopper was also recognizable as a grasshopper, and it was have no actual change structure, and also the change of their food or source. Hi,
Hello, hi, it's me again. Okay, so I will explain about Chelicerata. Chelicerata is the last part of the arthropods. Okay, Chelicerata live in the aquatic and marine environment. So dia tinggal dalam kawasan yang lembap. Okay, the first pair of appendages is the pincerli that used to feeding and defense. The second pair is the pedipalps that have a various function. The cephalothorax is the cephalothorax, fused head and thorax. Okay, so this is the example of the Chelicerata. There is a horseshoe crab, canyon giant scorpion, and the black widow spider. Okay, so the features they have in common is they have segmented body and limb, have exoskeleton, have a body segmented, have no antenna, and have 6 pair of appendages. Okay, so the first one is the horseshoe crab. Okay, horseshoe crab is covered by the exoskeleton shell. At the anterior shell is horseshoe-shaped carapace, which bear 2 prominent compound eyes. Okay, so this is the carapace. Okay. So, and this one is a tick. Okay, so tick is ectoparasite of a various vertebrates. They carry disease such as a Rocky Mountain spotted fever and or a Lyme disease. When tick are not attached to a host, they are high on a plant and in the soil. Okay, so for scorpion, the pedipalp of the scorpion are a large pincer and their long abdomen and with a stinger which contain venom. Okay, so for a spider do not have a compound eyes, but they have a numerous simple eyes. The Chelicerata are modified as the fang with a dart from a poison gland, and the pedipalp are used to hold, taste, and chew food. The abdomen often contains a stick gland, and spiders spin a web in which to trap their prey. Okay, so that is all from me. Okay, bye-bye.
Hi, I'm back. So I will proceed with our last subtopic in this chapter 28, which is Invertebrate Deuterostomes. Upon completion of this section, we should be able to determine the major groups of animals in the Deuterostomia. Second, identify the major morphological structures of the sea star, which is an echinodon. And lastly, describe how sea stars move, feed, and reproduce. Deuterostomes include invertebrate echinoderms such as sea stars and also chordates. A phylum is Echinodermata. Echinoderms are primarily bottom-dwelling marine animals with range size are less than 1 cm of brittle star to over 2 meter long of giant sea cucumber. So this is a figure of giant sea cucumber. So the most striking feature of echinoderms is their 5-pointed radial symmetry. So this is as illustrated by a dove sea star. So we can see that the dove sea star have a 5-pointed radial symmetry, while their larvae are free-swimming filter feeders with bilateral symmetry. Next, echinoderms also have endoskeleton of spiny calcium-rich plate, which is ossicles. They also have a unique water vascular systems that consists of channels and appendage, and its function in locomotion, feeding, gas exchange, and also sensory reception. Next is echinoderms. So echinoderms are divided into more familiar and less familiar types of groups. For more familiar types of group, have three. First is Asteroidea. Asteroidea is a group of sea star, while Holoturoidea have a long and leathery body. For example, sea cucumber. Next is Echinoidea. Echinoidea are using spines for locomotion, defense, and also burrowing. So, for example, like sea urchins and sand dollar. For less familiar types of group, we have two. First is Operoidea. Operoidea have a central disc surrounded with radially flexible arms. So this is actually brittle star. Brittle star are totally different with a sea star. And last one is Crinoidea. Crinoidea is the oldest group, which includes the stucco feather star and the motile feather star. The motile feather star is called as motile feather star because it can moving, while the stuck feather star is just stay at one place and sessile. Next is we are going to focusing on groups Extrodia, which is sea star. So, sea star number about 1,600 species, commonly found along rocky coasts where they feed on clams, oysters, and other bivalve mollusks. Their body walls are full with spine from the endoskeleton plates. For it is actually for protection. As we can see, has a lot of the spines. Next is pincer-like structure to keep the surface free of small particles. And then also skin gills, tiny finger-like extension of the skin for its respiration. Next, at the arm, there's a tube feet that make a groove line on the oral surface, and also have a well-developed coelom. So this is coelomic cavity at the arm. And then at here have a pair of digestive gland for male and also the glands for female that open on the orbital surface by very small pores. Other than that, there also have nervous systems that consists of central nerve rings that will give off radial nerves into each arm. Next and lastly actually, a light sensitive eye spot at tip of each arm. So this eye spot at every single tip. So next is the feeding process for the sea stars. Firstly, the sea stars position itself above bivalve. So it wants to eat the bivalve, so it will go to the bivalve and put itself over the bivalve, like a photo just now. And then it will attach some of its tip feet to each side of the shell to gradually pulls the shell open in alternation. So it will invert its cardiac stomach into the crack. Even a crack just small, it can invert its cardiac stomach into the crack and push it through the crack. So it will be a contact with the soft part of the bivalve, and then the stomach will secrete the enzymes and the digestion process will happen even while the bivalve is attempting to close its shell. So the digestion process is okay when the stomach secretes enzymes into the crack, and it will partially digest food is taken into the sea star's body. There's also in polarate stomachs, the enzymes from the digestive glands also used. And lastly, a short intestine opens at the anus on the abral sides. So the sea stars will eat again and okay, this process again. So next is locomotion process. We'll move like this. So it depends on the water vascular systems. Okay, so when water enter through sieve plant, when water enter through sieve plate or metaborite, it will passes through a stone channel to a ring channel, then it will go to the radial channel in each arm. So there are many lateral channels extend into the tube face. And at a tube face, at every tube face, it has an ampulla. So the contraction will happen at ampulla and it will cause the water is forced into the food tube, into the tube foods, and then it will expand. When the food touch a surface, the center is withdrawn, giving it a suction so that it can adhere to the surface. So because of that, a sea star moves slowly along because of the expansion and contraction at the arm. So last, echinoderms do not have a respiratory, excretory, or secretory systems. Fluids within the coelomic cavity and the water vascular systems carry out many of these functions, such as gas exchange and also nitrogenous waste diffused through the coelomic fluid and body wall. Lastly, the cilia is to keep the coelomic fluids moving. The sea star reproduce asexually and also sexually. For asexually, each fragment can regenerate to a whole animal as a sea star as long as a portion of central disc is present. So that means that when it was fermented, it can regenerate into the adult and complete sea star's back as long as it has a portion of the central disc. Next, bisexually, it will spawn and release the egg or sperms at the same time. And bilaterally, larva will undergo the metamorphosis process, radially symmetrical adults. So that's all from our group. Thank you.